Hey there, apartment hackers. It is David Monroe, CCIM, and this is the recording of the Facebook Live that I just did. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this on Paint and actually show you what I was talking about. So if you remember, what I said was the first thing we need to find is our potential rental income from the owner, and that is our PRI. Oh, let's extend that out. So you're just gonna have to be patient with me because I am really just learning how to use Paint here. I've never really used it before, but I have seen another person that does training videos, and he uses it, potential rental income, quite a bit, and I kind of like the way it was being used, so I'm going to try this out since I don't have my whiteboard behind me because I'm in a hotel. All right, so the first thing we have is our potential rental income. Let's shrink this down just slightly so we have room for everything. Hopefully you can still see that really good. All right, then the next thing we do, if you remember, is we subtract our vacancy and credit loss, which would look like on a P&L possibly could be something like this. Okay, so when you see that listed, we know they're talking about the vacancy, physical vacancy, and then credit loss would be the amount of money that the tenants aren't paying or slow paying, giving you your economic vacancy. So if your physical vacancy is 12%, your economic vacancy might be 25%. So that's what goes here. But like I told you before, what we're going to put here is just 10%. And then we'll subtract, or we'll multiply our potential rental income times 0.1, and that'll give us our vacancy credit loss, and we subtract that number from the potential rental income, and that gives us our gross operating income. And if you remember, what I said was from potential rental income, if you will find out what the average rents are for the apartment complex. So if it's a 20-unit property and the units are averaging $700 a month, then you put 700 times 20, which gives you $14,000 a month. Multiply that times 12 and get us our annual potential rental income. Remember, when we're dealing with investment properties, we always work with annual numbers, not monthly numbers. Once we subtract our potential rental income from our vacancy and credit loss, that gives us our gross rental income, or GRI. And let's not screw that up again. There we go. All right. So once we have our GRI, we then need to know what are our operating expenses. And if you remember, I said our operating expenses were going to be 50%, so we can just keep it simple. It doesn't matter what the owner is showing. It doesn't matter what you know the market shows. Remember, we're just doing a quick valuation here. So if we know average rents are $700 a month, we can quickly calculate what that potential rental income is. We're just going to give it a 10% vacancy credit loss, subtract those two numbers to get our gross rental income, divide it by 2 or multiply it times 0.5 or however you want to do it, which will give us our net operating income, or NOI, which everybody probably hears quite a bit in the investment world. So once we know what our NOI is, we can then determine the value of the property, or whether their price point is within, somewhat of a good range. So how do we do that? Well, if you remember, I showed you a chart. Let's see if I can move this thing here. Just give me a second while I try to draw this. Again, I've never really used this program before. This is brand new to me, but it shouldn't be too difficult to do. I did do a couple practice runs with it. All right, let's go back here. Remember, we said this was our income. Let's increase our size. Really, let's increase our size. Let's try that again. There we go. Let's bring that down. Nice. Doesn't need to be bold. There we go. We have income, which, remember, our income is our NOI. Okay? then we have our rate. And if you remember from earlier, our rate is the cap rate. We're going to have to shrink that down. I promise I'll get better at doing all this. There we go. And then the last thing, back up to 36, is our value. Shrink that back down. So, if we know what the NOI is and we have a value, then we can determine what the cap rate is. So, if we know, let's say our NOI is $100,000, and let's say the owner is asking $2 million. Let's put value here. I love it when I do stupid things. All right, so we're going to have to go here. Then we know we can take and divide NOI by value. So if I bring up the old handy dandy calculator, let's bring the calculator on the screen, and we go 100,000 divided by 2 mil, and that's going to give us a 5% cap rate. Woohoo! Man, that's a doozy there. All right, so we probably don't have a good value here. So what this is going to tell you, we just did a real quick calculation. I'm probably not going to do any more calculations here, and I'm going to move on to the next property. And that's why we do this real quick valuation. Now, on the flip side of that, if you want to know how much you can put on the property or how much your value would be to see if you're close and maybe can negotiate it down, then we can take and let's delete this. Let's see, did that delete it? Of course it didn't delete it. Why would it delete it? We could do this. There we go. So now if we know our cap rate that we want is, let's say, an 8% cap rate. Well, let's be a little more realistic. Let's say 7.5% if it's a Class C property. Ampersand isn't going to do me any good. There we go, 7.5. So then if we take the NOI and we divide it by the cap rate, so we bring our handy dandy calculator back out, and we say our NOI is $100,000, and we divide it by 0.075, that gives us a value of $1,333,333,333,333, right? So we're, $677,000 off of his asking price. That's probably going to be too big of a spread. Okay? Then the other thing you can do is you can look at the relationship between cap rate and value. So in order for us to buy this at a 7.5% cap rate, if we take his value of, I closed the calculator. Let's bring it back up. Again, I promise I'll get better at this. Bring the handy dandy calculator back up. Let's take the value, his $2 million, and let's multiply it times our cap rate. And that means that NOI needs to be $150,000 in order for us to purchase this property based on a cap rate that we've determined as our risk. So this is just a real quick way to look at this and determine whether you want to purchase this property or not. That way, when you're on the phone and a seller says, yeah, I'd sell it for, $50,000 a door, and it's a 20-unit apartment complex. Well, then we know that's a $10 million? Well, heck, I can't figure out numbers here. So $50,000 a door times 20 units equals $1 million. And if he came back and he said it was $100,000 a door and it's Class C property, well, we already know we're walking away. But at $50,000 a door, does it work or not? And a door just means per unit. And we can run these quick valuations and quick numbers in our head by using just a standard 10% vacancy and credit loss and a 50% operating expense ratio to get our NOI based on the risk that we want. Now, if you don't know what the average rents are for the apartment complex, but you know the market and you really shouldn't be investing in a market you don't know, learn your market first, then just use what the market rent should be. So if the average market rent is $700, then you would use that. All right, so I hope that works out a little better for you and that this is a little bit better of an explanation. I promise I'll get more fluid on this. The more we do it, the better it'll get. But I hope you found value in this. Please go and like my Facebook page at David Monroe CCIM. I also have started a new Facebook group, which is apartment hacking. So if you just type in the search apartment hacking, my group will come up. Take a look at it. See if you'd like to join the apartment hacking group. Also like my Facebook or my YouTube channel, which is David Monroe 45. So that's youtube.com/C/David Monroe 45. I also have a podcast on my blog, which is davidmonroeccim.com. So go check out my podcast. It is about goal setting, productivity, and holding each other accountable. I think you'll enjoy it. Anyway, I'm glad you guys came on for this. I hope it was valuable for you, and I'll talk to you in the next video.